happy to be here today, and I'm glad to tell you that we've got a very special guest. He's been a guest with us before, but his poetry is just outstanding, and the way he does it is even more outstanding. So I'm glad to introduce you again to Richard Iyall. Hi, Richard.
Hi, Carol.
I'm so glad to have you here again this morning. And I would tell you what a great shirt you got on there.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, my father gave me this shirt.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was an instructor. He was a coach, a high school coach up in the state of Washington.
Oh.
And also, he had a career with that for 31 years, and then he formed his own Indian education program.
Wow.
And he would wear this shirt going around giving cultural presentations.
Well, it looks brand new, so so he took good care of it anyway.
I try, yeah.
Well, I'm so glad to have you back on the show, and I know that you've got some new poetry that we're going to be lucky to hear. So what did you decide to offer for us this morning, Richard?
Well, today is November 5th, 2 days after the huge national election.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also Native American Heritage Month.
Wow, that's great.
So I am Native American. I'm a member of the Cowlitz Indian tribe from the state of Washington.
Wow, that is great. I was going to ask you where the Cowlitz were. They're up in Washington.
Yeah, they're up there. We're up there now. We got our federal recognition in the year 2000.
Oh.
My grandfather, he was Frank A. Iyall. It's mostly pronounced Iyall.
Iyall, okay.
I was raised with a different pronunciation by my Caucasian mother. But,
oh, okay.
But they usually pronounce it Iyall.
Okay.
Anyway, my grandfather, he was the delegate for the tribe.
Oh.
And so he would take a train from the state of Washington to Washington, D.C. once a year.
Oh.
And he would go and lobby not only for our tribe to try to get our federal recognition, but for the Nisqually tribe. His wife was Nisqually, my grandmother, and they had property on the Nisqually reservation. So and on top of that, I think his greatest effect, his greatest achievement was while he was back in Washington, D.C., he wrote wording for a bill. This is back, around a century ago.
Wow.
Almost a century ago.
Fabulous.
The bill, it was the very first bill to give the indigenous people of this country citizenship in the country.
No kidding.
Yes, that's true.
That's really big. That is big.
Yeah, it was called the Indian Citizenship Act of 1924.
Well, you were citizenship before we were.
Yeah. We were here before the country was here.
No.
So we got, thanks to my grandfather, we got invited to join this country.
Oh, I have such love for the Indians. I really do. I even write about them and everything. But I really am for you, and I'm hoping that better things even that are happening now, better things will happen for you. For your tribes.
I hope so. It's taken about 160 years for our tribe to get the federal recognition.
Oh my gosh.
So we finally got it in the year 2000, and then there was appeals. We submitted some land that we wanted to have to be our initial trust land, our reservation, but we had appeals to that. People didn't want us to have it for various reasons,
Why?
Mostly selfish reasons.
Oh my gosh, my gosh.
I won't get into all the details, but what it took was finally it went to an appellate court, a federal appellate court, and they ruled in our favor.
Oh, great.
But even that was appealed to the United States Supreme Court. But the Supreme Court finally came out with a decision that they were going to let the appellate court decision stand.
Good.
So from that point on, that land is our reservation.
Oh my gosh, you have to fight for your land that you had before anybody was here but you.
and yeah, before Lewis and Clark came up there, there was over 2 million acres that was our homeland.
Wow, 2 million.
Yeah.
Oh, and how did you come up at the end? an acre or so?
About 152.
Well, anyway, we're not going to talk about totally that. We're going to get you to reading your poetry because
Right.
your poetry is so real and so interesting. I mean, it's not just talks about roses and things like that. It tells really stories, and the way you do them is wonderful. So I want to shut up myself and get you reading one of your poets.
Sure. This one, it's a long one. It's called "Where is the Freedom in This Land?" A free verse poem. Why was this country formed? This country called the United States? Did not the founders seek their freedom and their independence from a king who ruled his people with an iron fist? Was not this country formed for independence from repression and from oligarchical control? Was not the founders' former government destructive of these ends, of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? Before the English settled on this land, there were some people here. Before the Spanish plundered all this land, there were our people here. Before Columbus placed his foot on sacred, sovereign land, our ancestors were here. Old nations of the people lived their lives with freedom on the land. Some people roamed the land to follow herds of buffalo. Some people fished for salmon, hunted deer and other game. Some roots were dug and berries picked to give the people strength. The land was rich for all to live, with nothing gone to waste. Kamiakin, organic farmer in what now is Washington, was so respected by the people of some sovereign nations that they made him chief of all confederated tribes and bands of Yakima. He was a friend to all until the greed of European immigrants had changed his heart to join his people in the fight for justice in the land. He sought to save his people and their land, indeed their way of life, from U.S. genocidal policy against the stewards of the land. A U.S. military soldier sparked a war. A man named Isaac Stevens was a graduate of West Point in the year of 1839. While serving in the war in Mexico, he moved up in the ranks. Another U.S. military man named Franklin Pierce had fought in Mexico and ran for president in 1852. When Pierce became the president, he honored Stevens with the title of Governor of Washington. The man named Isaac Stevens was appointed governor in 1853. He was the first to serve as governor before it was a state. As such, he also was the superintendent of Indian affairs. Diplomacy was not the way that Washington was lost. The governor used force to get the leaders of the tribes to cede their lands and rights. He was a drunkard and a scoundrel with support. Kamiakin then led the warriors east of Cascade Mountain Range in war. against the U.S. Army and militiamen of Washington. From 1855 to 1858, the wars were on. His cousin Leschi was involved. He was a major factor in the wars. Nisqually War Chief Leschi led the sovereign nations west of Cascade Mountain Range in war against the genocide. He organized a battle targeting the coastal town, Seattle. Colonials with great numbers and with greater weapons proved to be too much. Chief Leschi could not save the freedom for the peaceful, nature-loving people of the land who were the stewards there. He could not save our freedom there. The governor sent forces out to capture Leschi then. 2 men were killed as they were seeking him. A. Benton Moses was the name of one of the men killed. Chief Leschi faced a trumped-up charge of murder, yet he wasn't even there. His status as a legal combatant in time of war was ignored by those in charge. With martial law declared unjustly by the governor, they captured him. Chief Leschi was turned in by nephew Sluggia in 1856. He should have not been tried at all. Injustice broke his heart. Chief Leschi had a brother, Quemuth, who surrendered after Leschi was not free. Van Ogle and James Longmire came with him. Olympia is where they went. But justice was not served in these United States. They spent the night. Before the morning came, a man shot Quemuth with a gun. He chased the man. As Quemuth chased the shooter, going out into the street, a murderer stabbed Quemuth in the back. He was a victim in the Capitol in 1856. Though there were witnesses to this attack, there was not one who had the courage to identify the murderer. The case remains an unsolved mystery today. A jury in a federal court could not decide the guilt or innocence of Leschi in the year of 1856. A second trial later was convened with evidence withheld. Chief Leschi was convicted wrongly in a U.S. court. Defeat and sad injustice put this man in prison. In 1858, injustice reigned as Leschi then was hung. September 1858, Chief Iyall of Yakima paid visit to Army Colonel Wright at Latah Creek in search of peace. The colonel ordered irons put on him. Chief Iyall and his chieftain son named Qualchen were well known. Quote, I then sent a messenger for Qualchen, desiring his presence forthwith, with notice that if he did not come in, I would hang Iyall, unquote. Colonel George Wright, 9th Infantry, United States Army. Son Qualchin came to George Wright Camp, unarmed, in peace, to talk. Chief Iyall watched in horror as the colonel broke the universal sign for truce. A flag of peace was being flown as Wright commanded Qualchin hung. A quarter hour passed, with genocidal violence pursued. In that time, it was done. A few days hence, as prisoner of war, Chief Iyall rode a horse. His legs were tied beneath the horse. Lieutenant Morgan oversaw the chief that day, while army troops were going to a fort. The group approached a little creek. Then Iyall made his move. He whipped the soldier in the face, then dashed across the creek. He sought his freedom from the European immigrants, their ways of violent dominion over people, nature, and the land. Lieutenant Morgan chased Chief Iyall, chased Chief Iyall then, and shot him in the back. Not once, not twice. 3 bullets from the gun had hit their mark. Yet Iyall didn't stop. When cornered in a cul-de-sac, the chief surrendered to the man. Lieutenant Morgan's gun had fired all its shots. He ordered Sergeant Ball to shoot the chief. Chief Iyall sat upon the horse with honor in his heart. The sergeant took his aim and fired just one shot. The bullet hit Chief Iyall in his head. The wounded body of the chief slung underneath the horse. By sunset, he was dead. I am a member of a sovereign nation called the Cowlitz Indian tribe. I am descended from the Cowlitz chief Skanewa, called the Chief of Chiefs. Skanewa ruled the land and all the tribes along the Cowlitz River, from the Puget Sound up in the north to where the river merged with water in Columbia, the mighty river to the south. I am descended from the chief named Weowitch, the father and his son, named Weowitch, a chief as well. Between the two, they served as chiefs a century in time. Their tribe, the Pishwanwappums, was a major tribe which was combined with other tribes and bands by Isaac Stevens to be called the Yakima. I am descended from some other people from the great Northwest. They all became subjected to the wanton acts of this new nation called the United States. The people of this country took our lands to gain some freedom for themselves. They took our lands for independence from the British monarch's rule. So now I ask of you, where is our freedom now? Where is our independence now? Where is your freedom now? Where is your independence now? It was not right to not allow the sacred dance, ghost dance. Where is the freedom in this land? Will you give us a chance? We honor Mother Earth who gives us life. We honor life. We know that we are one with all. We are the stewards of the land. We know, some leaders of this government, which occupies the land, have built a web of strict restrictions, taking freedom by their hands. They now declare their power over simple trade by all. They place taxation on transactions of the U.S. currency. They make so many laws restricting legal use of guns. Do they respect the treaties and the U.S. Constitution? No. Do they put some limitations on where you can go? They put some limitations on what you can wear. Or not. They put some limitations on some plants that you can grow, like pot. Where is this land that's made for people to be free? Is this what you call brave? Are we so free, or are we slaves? If they put limitations on what you might drink, would they put limitations on what you might think? They would. Would they not do that with a drug or with a slug? Of course they would. One day they will demand a laser mark upon your sacred skin, or find a fiendish way to use a microchip, like in a new vaccine. Without the mark, they will not let you buy your food, your water, or conduct your business by order of the government. You might survive by living as an outcast, as a radical, a criminal, an artist of the heart. You might be a musician or a poet spreading light. But save yourself from misery of giving in to fear. We've learned a lot by going through the things that we don't want. So where can freedom and the independence now be found? We still have freedom in our heart. We still have freedom in our mind. Please pay attention to the subtle, incremental judgments over you. If you think you have freedom now, remember history and know our history. The people who have lived upon this land for centuries were free. Our freedom and our independence were our sacred ways to live in harmony. Our freedom was contracted with expanding laws of this new nation, the U.S. They labeled us as savages in judgment over us. The European immigrants stole homelands of the sovereign nations here, with greater numbers of the people and with military tools of death. The people of this land adapted just to try to live. The centralized technologies of war are not sustaining life for all. The key to life is greater harmony with Mother Nature and with Gaia. It is love. The domination is a force of darkness, not of light. Rebellion by the European immigrants gained independence from their king. But where is justice for the rest? The greed of some has brought contamination, disrespect, and chaos to this land. Do not fall prey to dark temptations such as that. Instead, try living life for all. Please do not wander on this land with head implanted in the sand. Let your heart and your soul be spreading truth, for then you will stand tall. That's it.
Oh my gosh, that is fantastic. I'm going to sit here and go like this, but thank you so much. That is so beautiful, and I'm going to give you some writing I did about the Indians too, so that you can see how I feel. And I know all of us feel that way because the Indians are wonderful people. And we thank you today, and we will see you on next Thursday at 11 o'clock. Bye-bye.